Natural and man-made disasters have plagued humankind for as long as we've been around. Some have been so catastrophic that they changed the course of human history. These are 20 disasters that shaped the world. The Black Death. From 1347 to 1351, Europe was ravaged by one of the worst plagues in history. Caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, the illness killed up to 200 million people, including an estimated 30 to 50% of all Europeans. The victims were mostly peasants who lived in close proximity to rats and fleas, carrying the deadly disease. The Black Death not only devastated Europe, but it also had an impact on the course of European history. With such a huge portion of the population wiped out, feudalism began to break down and there was a labor shortage, which led to higher wages for peasants. Mount Vesuvius, 79 AD. On September 24, 79 AD, the Roman city of Pompeii was completely destroyed by an eruption of nearby Mount Vesuvius. Buried under 20 feet of ash and pumice, the city was lost to history until its rediscovery in 1748. But the disaster wasn't just a one-off. The eruption also destroyed the prosperous Roman city of Herculaneum, 6 miles away, as well as several smaller settlements. It is believed that between 16,000 and 25,000 people perished in the disaster. Eruption of Mount Tambora, 1815. The 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora near Indonesia was one of the deadliest in recorded history, with a volcanic explosivity index rating of 7. It is also the most violent eruption of a volcano in the 19th century. In total, it is estimated that 88,000 people lost their lives from either the eruption or the resulting tsunamis. But perhaps even more devastating was the impact the eruption had on the global climate. The following year became known as the year without a summer. Crops failed and food shortages led to starvation. Krakatoa eruption, 1883, located in the Indonesian province of Lampung. Krakatoa is a volcanic island formed by 3 separate volcanoes. In 1883, the central volcano erupted in the deadliest volcanic eruption in recorded history. A series of explosions could be heard as far away as Perth, Australia. And although there were no fatalities in Australia, at least 36,000 people lost their lives on the island of Java from either the eruption or the resulting tsunamis. Hot clouds of ash and gas swept through villages, killing everyone in their path. The explosion ejected an estimated 26 billion cubic feet of material into the atmosphere, and the dust remained in the air for years, causing significant global climate change. The Great Fire of London. In the summer of 1666, a fire broke out in London that would ravage the city for 5 days. It's believed that a baker accidentally left his oven on and went to bed, and by the next morning, his shop and several surrounding buildings were engulfed in flames. By the time the fire was extinguished, 500 acres of central London had been destroyed and an estimated 10% of the city's total population was left homeless. The disaster prompted major changes in the way London was built, with new streets being planned out and building codes being put into place. The Irish Potato Famine, 1845 to 1852. Between 1845 and 1852, Ireland suffered through one of the worst famines in history, when potato crops began to be infected with a fungus that caused them to rot. Potatoes were a staple food source for the Irish, so when the blight struck, it meant that many people were left without enough food to eat. Over 1 million people died during the famine, most from starvation and diseases like typhus, and another million emigrated from the country, most of them settling in the United States. Spanish flu pandemic, 1918 to 1920, originating in the United States in March 1918. The Spanish flu pandemic was caused by an H1N1 influenza virus. Unlike other influenza outbreaks, it affected people of all ages. Unlike previous strains, which tended to affect young children the most. By the end of the pandemic in 1920, an estimated 500 million people had been infected worldwide, with 50 million dying from the disease, including an estimated 675,000 Americans. Chernobyl disaster, 1986. On April 26, 1986, a meltdown at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in northern Ukraine resulted in one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. A flawed reactor design combined with human error resulted in a partial meltdown that released large amounts of radiation into the atmosphere. 31 people died as a direct result of the disaster, but it is estimated that thousands more have died since then due to radiation-related illnesses. As many as 185,000 people were evacuated from their homes, and the area around the plant remains largely uninhabited to this day. Lisbon earthquake and tsunami, 1755. On November 1, 1755, as All Saints' Day celebrations were taking place in Lisbon, Portugal, an earthquake struck, measuring between 8.5 and 9.0 on the Richter scale. It is considered the deadliest earthquake in Europe's history. Estimates vary, but it is believed that between 10,000 and 100,000 people were killed outright by the quake itself. But the destruction didn't stop there. A tsunami with waves measuring up to 60 feet in height hit the coast, further devastating the city. Fires then broke out, which raged for 5 days and destroyed much of what was left standing. The Dust Bowl. During the 1930s, a severe drought and economic hardship created the perfect conditions for a natural disaster in the Great Plains. A combination of poor farming practices, high winds, and low rainfall turned the region into a dust bowl. Farmers' fields were buried in dirt, and the winds would carry the dust hundreds of miles, creating massive dust storms. This period of time is often referred to as the Dirty Thirties. In all, an estimated 350,000 people fled the region. The Great Chinese Famine, 1959 to 1961, taking place between 1959 and 1961. The Great Chinese Famine was a period of widespread starvation across China. It was caused by both natural and political factors. Floods in the late 1950s destroyed agricultural lands and grain stores. Then government policies that diverted grain supplies to feed growing urban populations exacerbated the food shortage. It is estimated that between 15 and 55 million people died during the famine. The Plague of Justinian, 541 to 542, named after Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. The Plague of Justinian was a devastating pandemic that swept across the Eurasian continent. It is believed to have been bubonic plague and may have been brought to the Byzantine Empire by rodents on ships that traveled from India. While the plague ultimately had little impact on the course of the Byzantine Empire, it did devastate the Sassanid Persian Empire and is believed to have killed between 30 and 50 million people, wiping out between 50 and 75% of the population of Europe. Yellow River Flood. On June 19, 1931, the Huai River in China overflowed, leading to catastrophic flooding. The Han and Luo river dikes collapsed, unleashing massive amounts of water that inundated farmlands and villages. The flood continued until the end of July, by which point an estimated 350,000 people had drowned and 2.5 million people had been displaced. Entire cities were underwater, and when the water receded, they were left in ruins. The disaster is still considered the greatest natural disaster in Chinese history. The Great Fire of Rome, 64 AD. On July 19, 64 AD, a fire broke out in Rome that would rage for 6 days. The blaze began in the district of Asubura and spread quickly, destroying an estimated 10% of the city. Much of Rome was made of wood and thatch at the time, and strong winds fanned the flames, helping them spread from house to house. Legend has it that Emperor Nero used the opportunity to clear land for a new palace complex. But the fire was so massive that it could have spread to neighboring cities if it hadn't been brought under control. The 2004 Indian Ocean Tsunami. On December 26, 2004, a 9.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. The disaster sent a series of tsunami waves crashing into 14 countries bordering the Indian Ocean. In total, over 230,000 people lost their lives from the disaster. The areas hit hardest were Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. The disaster had a profound impact on the local people and communities, and to this day, many of them continue to struggle to recover. The 1923 Great Kanto Earthquake, Japan. On September 1, 1923, an XM.9 magnitude earthquake struck Tokyo and Yokohama, Japan. Strong aftershocks continued to rattle the region for weeks, but the damage had already been done. An estimated 142,000 buildings had been destroyed, leaving 1.2 million people homeless. Fires broke out across the affected areas, which were made worse by the fact that most of the fire equipment had been damaged in the quake. And with water mains being severed, firefighters struggled to contain the blazes. In all, it is believed that between 142,000 and 230,000 people lost their lives. The 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy, India. On December 2, 1984, a gas leak at the Union Carbide India Limited pesticide plant in Bhopal, India resulted in what is considered to be the world's worst industrial disaster. Hundreds of thousands of people were exposed to methyl isocyanate gas, and many of them died as a result. Estimates vary depending on who you talk to, but it is believed that between 3,000 and 16,000 people lost their lives and hundreds more suffered permanent disabilities. Challenger explosion, 1986. The Space Shuttle program was supposed to be a new era for NASA, and the future of space exploration looked bright. But then disaster struck. During the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger, the O-rings in the right solid rocket booster failed, allowing hot gases to escape and destroy the vehicle. All 7 crew members were killed, making it the deadliest accident in U.S. space history. The explosion was watched by millions of schoolchildren across America, who were told that what they were seeing was an explosion of a different kind. "It's not a toy," said President Ronald Reagan the following day. "It's a tragedy." The Titanic disaster, 1912. On April 15, 1912, the captain of the Titanic spotted a lifeboat and steered the ship toward it, assuming it was a fireworks display. He only realized the next morning that it was an iceberg. The so-called unsinkable ship had struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic and would sink within hours, claiming the lives of more than 1,500 people. Of the approximately 2,224 passengers and crew on board, only about 700 were rescued. The disaster led to major changes in maritime safety regulations, including requirements for ships to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board. The Spanish Armada storm, 1588, when King Philip II of Spain assembled a fleet of 130 ships called the Spanish Armada to invade England. He was met with bad weather. Storms battered the fleet as they tried to sail up the English Channel, forcing them to seek shelter in calmer waters. Ironically, the very weather that was supposed to protect them ended up destroying many of the Spanish ships, along with the livelihoods of thousands of Spanish sailors. The invasion force was effectively neutralized before it even reached the English coast. Which disaster do you think was the worst? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other content where we bring you the latest news from around the world. Thanks for watching.